Think about creatures that just, well, refuse to fade away. Across continents, across centuries, one figure consistently rears its magnificent and, yeah, often terrifying head. The dragon.
It really does. And, it's a testament to something deeply human, I think, that this mythical beast continues to fascinate us so much.
Absolutely. It's not just random, is it?
No, not at all. The story of dragons, it's like a window into how different societies have grappled with these huge questions.
Yeah.
About the cosmos, nature, power itself.
So you're curious about where these incredible tales actually began and how they've changed over time.
I bet a lot of people are.
Good. Because for this deep dive, we're tracing that long, winding history from their, let's say, shadowy origins in ancient myths right up to their stardom in modern fantasy today.
We're using the fascinating history of dragons, from myth to modern fantasy, as our guide for this.
Exactly. So let's dive in. Where do we even start this story? Where's the beginning?
Well, our exploration really takes us way back. Mesopotamia, we're talking around 2000 BCE.
Okay.
And here, we find some of the earliest, let's call them dragon-like figures. Think of the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. It introduces this powerful entity, Tiamat.
Tiamat. Right, that name sounds, I don't know, significant more than just some monster. What did she represent?
Oh, absolutely significant. Tiamat was this colossal sea serpent, a dragon, essentially. And in that creation story, she embodied primordial chaos.
Chaos, like the void before everything.
Exactly. The formless, watery abyss before the gods brought order. Think of her as the raw, untamed potential of the universe. Her battle with the gods who were emerging. That was the fundamental struggle. Structure versus, well, utter disarray.
Wow, okay.
So a key insight here, right at the start, is that these earliest dragons weren't just scary beasts to be slain. They were personifications of how the universe even began. Cosmic forces.
That's a really powerful origin, a dragon representing the untamed void. And it wasn't just Mesopotamia, was it? Egypt had something similar.
Indeed it did. Ancient Egypt gives us Apep, a gigantic serpent god. And again, embodying chaos, darkness. The ancient Egyptians believed that every single night, Apep would battle Ra, the sun god.
Every night.
Every night. It was this constant cosmic struggle. Light and order, literally having to fight off the forces of disruption continuously. What's fascinating is seeing this recurring theme, a serpent-like creature representing the fundamental opposition to order.
It does make you wonder why the serpent form specifically was so often chosen for these primal forces.
That's a great question.
Even in early Greek myths, you see monstrous, sort of serpent-like creatures, like the Hydra. Maybe not our classic winged, fire-breathing image, but definitely a terrifying, multi-headed serpent that heroes had to defeat.
And that's a crucial point. These early myths across different cultures, they use these fantastical, often serpentine beasts as a way to understand, to articulate the challenges of, say, building civilization or just dealing with the wildness of nature.
They're metaphors, then.
Exactly. Metaphors for what needed to be conquered, controlled, or maybe just understood. It reveals a fundamental way early societies made sense of their world through these powerful mythical creatures.
Okay, so we have these ancient serpents. They embody chaos, threats to order, that sort of thing. But then our source material points east, especially to China, and the dragons, they seem completely different, almost the opposite.
It's a really striking contrast, isn't it? While Western traditions often paint dragons as these malevolent forces, Chinese dragons, the Long, are generally revered. They're seen as wise, benevolent, powerful beings.
And they look different too, right?
Very different, long, sinuous bodies, like snakes almost, often with horns, claws, whiskers. But typically, and this is significant, no wings.
And their role isn't about destruction, it's more constrictive.
Precisely. Chinese dragons are traditionally the controllers of water. Rain, rivers, seas, they bring the vital water that nourishes the land. So they become these incredibly potent symbols of prosperity, fertility, good fortune.
Life givers, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. That deep connection to essential natural forces gives them this profoundly positive meaning in the culture.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me. The article highlights how Chinese emperors historically claimed they were descended from dragons.
Yes, that's huge.
That's not just a cool story. It elevates the dragon to a symbol of imperial power itself, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The dragon became intrinsically linked to the emperor. It embodied his strength, his divine right to rule, the very essence of the Chinese state, really. This association just cemented the dragon's incredibly high status. Imagine the power of that symbolism, the ruler embodying the dragon's benevolent strength.
And it wasn't just a static symbol, right? The article mentions the dragon dances during festivals like the Lunar New Year. That seems like a very active, visible way to keep the myth alive.
Oh, completely active. The dragon dance is this vibrant, joyful celebration. It's all about prosperity, good luck. Seeing that long, undulating dragon carry through the streets, it's a powerful, living representation of all the positive forces tied to the long. It's really a cornerstone of cultural expression.
A celebration, not a battle.
Exactly. And as the article notes, we see similar, though distinct, dragon myths, with positive vibes in Japan too, the Ryu, and in Korea the Young. They often share that core symbolism of natural harmony, balance, even moral strength.
Okay, so we've got this fascinating split. Chaos serpents in the ancient West, benevolent life-bringers in the East. But the article then pulls us back to the West, focusing on how that, well, more familiar Western dragon developed, the winged, scaled, fire-breathing kind.
Yes, the Western dragon, as we often picture it, really solidified its image in medieval Europe. And here, yeah, the dominant story often casts the dragon as the ultimate adversary, a really formidable creature, immense power, destructive capabilities, something that has to be defeated.
And there's a big religious angle here, isn't there? The article connects dragons strongly with evil, even Satan in medieval Christianity.
That's absolutely crucial. In Christian stories, Christian art, the dragon frequently symbolizes sin, temptation, the forces of darkness. That theological interpretation just profoundly shaped how dragons were seen in the West for centuries.
Yeah.
It put them squarely on the side of evil.
Which brings us straight to St. George and the dragon, probably most famous example.
It has to be. It's the ultimate good versus evil showdown. The brave knight, the monstrous dragon saving the innocent princess.
Total archetype.
Exactly. And that legend became incredibly popular. It powerfully reinforced that image. The dragon as a terrifying beast threatening humanity, only overcome by courage, faith, righteous action. It really embedded that negative view.
And we can't forget the other classic image, the Western dragon hoarding gold, guarding treasure in a cave or up a mountain. There's something almost primal about that image, too.
Yeah. Right. The dangerous creature protecting its riches. What's intriguing is thinking about what that motif tells us about maybe human anxieties, fear of greed itself. Or perhaps it's a symbol for the unknown dangers lurking out there in hidden places.
Or maybe the danger of hidden knowledge.
Could be. That allure and peril of something powerful you have to confront. We see it echoed in huge tales like Beowulf, where the dragon and its horde triggered the final tragic battle. And in Norse legend, too, with Fafnir, who literally turns into a dragon because of his lust for gold.
So quite a journey already. Ancient chaos serpents, benevolent Eastern powers, fire-breathing Western foes guarding treasure. The dragons definitely shape-shifted through history, but as the article makes clear, the story doesn't stop in the Middle Ages. They're still huge in modern fantasy.
Oh, absolutely not. Dragons have had this major resurgence, and they've evolved even more in contemporary pop culture. The article rightly points to J.R.R. Tolkien's Smaug in The Hobbit. He was pivotal.
Smaug, yes, he really set the stage, didn't he?
Totally. Smaug is intelligent, cunning, greedy, yes, but also utterly captivating. Charismatic almost. He set a new standard for the modern fantasy dragon.
And since Tolkien, we've seen such a range. I mean, you've got the terrifying, almost elemental force of Drogon in Game of Thrones.
The true weapon of mass destruction.
And then on the completely other end, you have Toothless in How to Train Your Dragon. Sympathetic, loyal, almost like a pet. It's a world away from those purely evil medieval beasts.
Exactly, and that's what's so compelling. Now their complexity. Dragons aren't just villains anymore. They can be allies, misunderstood creatures, wise mentors even, but they almost always bring that sense of awe, that power, even the friendly ones.
Still awe-inspiring.
Always.
And it's fascinating how deep dragon lore runs in our entertainment. Video games, movies, novels, tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons. It's like we keep being drawn back to this archetype, finding new ways to play with it, mixing old myths with new ideas.
It truly speaks to the myth's enduring power, doesn't it? These modern takes often borrow from both East and West, creating richer, more complex dragons than ever before.
Which I guess leads us to the big question, why? Why this persistent fascination? Why have dragons in all their forms held such sway over our imagination for literally millennia?
Well, the article suggests, and I think it's right, that dragons resonate so deeply because they tap into something really primal in the human experience.
Like what?
Our deepest fears, maybe? Fear of the unknown, destruction, chaos, but also maybe our deepest hopes, for power, for magic, for overcoming incredible challenges. They stand right at that crossroads, don't they?
Yeah.
Between the chaos of nature and the order we try to build.
It's like they exist in that fuzzy zone between myth and, well, what could be real if the world was just a bit more magical. These extraordinary beings that challenge our idea of the possible.
Even now in our scientific age, there's still this pull, this allure to a creature that commands the sky, breathes fire. It's a reminder, perhaps, that there's still room for wonder, for the fantastical.
Yeah, a bit of magic left.
Precisely. Whether they were revered as river gods in ancient China or feared as gold hoarders in medieval Europe, dragons symbolize that enduring human link to magic, to the extraordinary. They just keep sparking our imaginations, fueling our stories.
So as you've journeyed with us through this deep dive into dragon history, maybe consider this. What fundamental parts of human nature, or the world we live in, do these incredibly diverse dragon myths actually reflect? What does the enduring appeal of this, fire-breathing, scaled creature really tell us about our own deepest fears and maybe our boundless capacity for wonder? Thanks for joining us for this